All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you're at. We're excited to welcome you back to another episode of Continuous and Never Ending Improvement, the podcast. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jalen Edward Phillips, and today we are also excited to welcome Miss Samantha White. I almost called you Olivia there. That's her sister. Olivia's not with us today, unfortunately, but we got a pretty good replacement in that department there with Samantha. And also, though, it's not just any day. We got a very special holiday today. It's Juneteenth here and everywhere, actually, June 19th, a very important day for freedom and equality as a whole. And actually, fun fact there that I actually learned today while watching the Pat McAfee show, shout out. But just Opal, I believe her name was Opal Lee. I didn't fact check that at all, but she walked 2.5 miles per day from Houston to Washington, D.C. to make Juneteenth a national holiday in 2021. Wow. So shout out to Opal Lee. I believe she was in her 90s when she did it. So very cool there. But just, an important day that needed to be recognized, and she made sure of that. But without any further ado, I'd like to pass it off to you guys to get us started.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to do the question. Obviously, happy Freedom Day, everybody. A huge day for us here. But I had a question because obviously, with it being, Juneteenth, the national day, where all the slaves were freed. The question is, after that event happens, I wonder what happened, and I just did some research, and that time is actually called the scattered period. But I think it's going to segue us into what we want to talk about, which is perspective. Because, obviously you being freed from slavery your whole life and then being, obviously, like I said, being open, a lot can come. It could be a lot of uncomfortability because you don't know what's next. It could be a lot of excitement, and it's so crazy how whatever your perspective is tends to come to fruition, So my question I had for you guys is, what is your current perspective lens? And then also, I would love for you to share a time where you had a positive perspective and what happened, But for me, I just want to start, give you guys some time to, obviously think while I start. But my current perspective lens is definitely challenged because right now I'm in a growing stage and it's tough. So, but I find myself, almost finding the hard in the challenge versus honestly just going through the challenge. And I think so just because I keep telling myself hard season, a lot of growth, but it's so wild because the follow-up question was, give an example of perspective or positive perspective, excuse me. And mine was Texas, and I think I shared this earlier, but leaving Texas and just realizing I'm just gonna go all to God and just be happy, peaceful. It was the happiest part of my life, and the result was I feel like I got reconnected with my purpose. You know what I'm saying? So, what's your current perspective lens? Give me a time when you had a good perspective. What happened?
Yeah, Sam, do you have something to share?
I think it's always evolving and changing. At the first part of the day, it could be one way and it can shift. So. I think I try to focus on, being optimistic and looking at things with glass half full, but some days are harder than others with that. In terms of times where I did have a positive perspective, I think, what you focus on, you'll find. It's made me push through harder times where if I was being negative, I probably would have gave up. I think a lot of that in terms of career, if you're fighting for a promotion or something, I think you have to have a positive outlook on the vision in the future, or a lot of people would quit, but it helps you be relentless, I guess, in a sense of chasing after your goals if you can look forward at the good that's around you versus the negative. But.
I think the big thing for me is just currently, it's pretty wide perspective, I guess, but I shared earlier, Earth is our spiritual gym, more or less, and Coach Tomlin says it all the time, shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we don't want comfort seekers, and it just makes me think, life isn't necessarily supposed to be comfortable, and I think we drive ourselves, at least I drive myself insane trying to create comfortability rather than just having that optimistic outlook and perspective of what this situation can be, you know what I mean, or what it can do internally rather than what I'm facing externally. So yeah, I guess optimistic is the big thing, and that's not always easy. It's like we were just watching earlier, you know, you don't build muscle by always just doing light wet rep and a lot of weights, but you got to tear that muscle down. So yeah, I guess just staying optimistic even when things get hard, and realizing that it's all just, that discomfort is really just to grow and advance us in terms of spirituality and mentality and just overall, yeah, how we view the world, and hopefully that enhances how we view the world and not hardens our heart or disgusts us on how we, you know, there's really only two options to go from there is, am I gonna let this expand my view of the world, or am I gonna let it shrink it and be like, see, that's why I feel this way, or that's why I have these hard beliefs, or am I gonna loosen them up and really see that there's no, you can't put the world under, or you can't, I don't know how to say that, but can't necessarily view the world through a telescope, or like you have to, or a microscope, but you have to look at it like through a telescope because there's such like a big picture.
Something that
I don't know if that
always
makes sense, but it's just kind of coming together in my head. But
something you talking resonated, you know, life and death, right? That's essentially the life we have. You live, you die, right? But there's life and death of anything, and like I feel like, you know, with, I don't want to say how we're wired, but a lot of us are wired to, like, you know, see the death, you know what I'm saying? And obviously whatever you're seeing, what you see is what you believe, you know what I'm saying? But that's why you have to like trick yourself to know that, no, I'm still alive, so no matter what might be dead, that, you know, I'm living in these situations that might be dead, I'm still alive, so that has possibility for it to be alive, you know what I'm saying? Because if I'm not done, God's not done. And I said to say, it's literally just that simple, you know. If your perspective is more of like there's depths and everything, that's what you're gonna find, you know. But if you have a perspective of life, you're gonna find life in all things, and that's gonna lead me to I have a question, Jake. How can you transfer, you know, more from a glass, half empty to a glass half full?
For me, I think the big thing is just gratitude. When I am seeing glass half full, I'm not being grateful for the things I already have and that are already in my life. And when you see that as glass half full, it's because the glass is already half full. I'm grateful for the things that are there, and not, yeah, well, that's nice that I have that much in the glass, but I'd like to have it completely full, you know what I mean? And it's just, I can't remember who the rapper is, but it's not how much you make, but how much you spend is essentially what they say. So it's like, it's not even so much how much you have, but like how much you value what you have, I guess is the big thing. And just, I think the hard thing there is, even in that Billie Eilish interview, they talked about it as something she struggled with, at least that she talked about, is like, it's so hard to realize or notice, like, when you're having that mentality until it's past and you look back on it, like, yeah, if I would have just flipped the switch there and looked at it a different way. But it's so hard sometimes to notice that when you're going through it. One thing too I did want to mention is just gotta remember, like, this too shall pass, because you're talking about life and death, and it's everything shall pass. This life we're living, no matter how good it is, will pass. All the good stuff will pass, all the bad stuff will pass, and I think that's why it's just, we're not supposed to be here forever. So anything we have here, whether it's a struggle or a blessing, it's not forever. The only things we have forever is what we let it do to us on the inside.
Yeah, I think like open-mindedness is super important in terms of that too. Like, perspectives when you're having a conversation or everything, it's like asking yourself, am I trying to understand the other person's point of view, or am I trying to get them to understand my point of view the entire time? And like, if you're open-minded, you're always willing to learn, so you're trying to understand what the other person's saying, whether you agree or disagree. Doesn't really matter in those moments, but I think that's an important like disposition when you're conversating. Otherwise, you get kind of caught up where you're like stuck in your own position or perspective, and like you can't see anything else. And yeah, that helps with the glass half full, glass half empty. If you're open-minded and willing to learn versus like debating and conversation.
Absolutely. I think that's huge right now, just in the age of electronics that we're in with, you hear people all the time like talking about pushing narratives, and I think that's what it is. It's just if you're trying to, if two parties are just each trying to have the other person understand where they're coming from, it's like maybe that's not the point. The point is to find the middle ground. And so many people just lose the focus of finding that middle ground. It's like, well, you gotta see what I'm saying, well, you gotta see what I'm saying. Well, if the person in the middle says both of those aren't fully right and says this is right and this is right, and you just actually use it to grow and develop something different rather than no I'm right, and then you have that in political sense, the right and left, when it's really somewhere in the middle is the truth. And that's something that gets lost about, because everyone just wants to be right and they're afraid to even be like a fraction of a percent wrong. That's something that goes into, I forget exactly how it says it, I hope I don't butcher it, but it basically says like, I'd rather be, can't remember, it's like I'd rather be 100%, or I'd rather be partially right than 100% wrong. That's basically what it says. Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather be, there's another one that says like, I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right. And
that one's huge.
Yeah, I know, like, you guys have talked about feedback a lot in previous episodes, so not to, like, drag that into this, but, like, I think about that, too, like, feedback has, like, a negative connotation because, like, nobody likes being criticized, but, like, again, when you're in a conversation where you feel like you can learn and grow, when you're just trying to hear the other person and take on their perspective instead of your own, like, to your point, it's not like this debate, not to make it political, but like how we see all the time. I think that just gives people a more optimistic view of the world naturally, if you can take that disposition more in conversation with relationships. But
you have to let the seeds fall on good soil, is really what it is. And I mean, I think they even talked about that a little bit in the Billie Eilish interview. It's just, or not that per se, but just it made me have a different perspective on the word feedback, because when I'm used to recording music with my headphones on, and they were like, we just have the feedback coming out of the speakers right there, and I was like, oh yeah, like, you always, at least in terms of when you think of feedback, is like unwanted noise or things in the background that you got to try to mitigate, and it's not necessarily it. That's again something that that ego puts into certain contexts, conditioning. And
like feedback could be like reflection, like even to yourself, like self-reflection is just feedback of what you just went through. So.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should call it more input than feedback,
Maybe we take it better.
I have some input. But yeah, that's a good point. I guess one question I have is just flat out, what are some, and maybe you talk about it, I guess, but just what are some tools that you guys would use to kind of amplify your perspective, or let me reword that, I guess. What are some tools that you guys would use to expand your perspective?
For me, it's something I'm doing recently. I'm still a little fresh to it, but it's actually been helping. I've seen it. Just because it's just like anything, once you start a little bit, it grows, snowball effect. But anytime I catch myself, like any negative thought or anything that, that I'm putting death in that situation, two things that are positive. They might not have anything to do with the situation or not, but I'm saying two things that I'm positive, I'm happy about, to just like try to double it down. But I feel like that's definitely been helping me, because I definitely came from a place where it was like a lot of, it's hard, but I'm ready to rock and roll, and because I'm like, it's hard, I'm looking at the hard, and it's really hard, but then thinking about the two positive things, it's like, oh yeah, this is life, and it makes it more exciting, and it gets me more back into, I love the journey, you know what I'm saying, and that's what we know it's all about.
Yeah, I would say trying to take myself out of the moment. Normally if we're in a negative perspective, it's all like me, I, how this is gonna hurt or affect me or like frustrate me. But if you remove yourself from it, or if you can, you're gonna see everything around you on the other side of it. But also just going back to like being like a lifelong learner, like the best teachers are the best learners, and trying to understand people if you want to grow relationships is key. So I mean, maybe instead of like being in a negative perspective, like asking questions, if it's a conversation, ask a question to the other person, or if it's just like a state of mind, ask a question to Google or something, watch some YouTube videos or other podcasts about it and just learn. You know, it might not switch your perspective immediately, but it will at least give you a different angle or viewpoint.
Yeah, I think that's a great point actually. I forget what I was watching recently, but they were just talking about being like fundamentally curious, and that's, you just made me think of like, yeah, if you're like, being curious is a foundation of being open-minded, you know what I mean? If you're necessarily, at least I'm thinking that if you're not curious, it's probably because you feel like there's nothing to be curious about, you know what I mean? Like, or you could figure it out at least on your own, but yeah, that was kind of interesting connection it made in my brain. And something you said, Jalen, which is kind of why I said the gratitude part when I kind of realized after I asked the question, it's essentially the same question you asked me. But I was glad to hear your guys' points on it. But in Asking It's Given, which is a book I read, but I can't remember who it's by, but there's processes in the back to help reconnect you to your source and that joy. But the first process, which is essentially if you feel like completely disconnected and all you can see is the heart, is the rampage of appreciation, which is what you're saying is, and it is a snowball effect. That's why I says find the smallest thing immediately around you, whatever it is that you can be appreciative of. And I always use the like, man, I'm thankful for this green light, or I'm thankful there's no traffic, or just something small, but it really does snowball into it helps you build that perspective. And the reason I say that is I think it's important to touch on is to not beat ourselves up when we do kind of get in that like glass half empty mentality, because it is just a conditioning, it is just a habit, and it's something that we can condition ourselves out of. It's just becoming aware of it and making a conscious effort to battle it in our mind. And like you said, to consciously have the thought of, no, I'm appreciative for this, rather than just be attacked by those thoughts, because nobody's immune to them, but it is something that our brains are a powerful thing, and we have more control over than we let ourselves believe sometimes. And that little action, and really, because I feel like a lot of times we get caught on trying to fix it from the outside, and what do I need to move on the outside externally to fix how I'm feeling inside, when it's really, how do I switch this thinking inside me to just create a habit of positive thinking to really work the law of attraction and attract the frequency, or however you view that. It gets pretty deep there as I keep talking, but basically to really, like Theo said, clean the weapon that you view the world with is really all it is. But it is a conscious effort, and it doesn't just happen by wishing for it. You have to actively fight those negative thoughts with a positive thought, or however small it is.
That kind of made me want to ask, like, in terms of what we were talking about with the past, present, future, and trying to be present, do you guys think you naturally focus when you're in a odd or negative perspective on like past or future like past failures or future worries? Like, what tense do you normally like get caught up in if you're in a weird perspective?
For me, I wouldn't say it's ever really the past. I don't know, honestly, I'd say it's more, it'd be the future. But the only reason I was kind of second guessing that is, like,
that's what I was thinking.
Is I get so like almost habitually stuck in the present and what I can control right now, that I lose that like joy of moving into like the vision that I have of the future. So there is a fine line where it can't just be, oh, I'm so present that I have no vision, you know what I mean? But I think when I do just get in a weird state of why am I stuck in the present, it's a lot of things I did in my past that led to this, but I'm more stressed about where am I even going to be able to get to where I wanted to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost like past things that I wanted for myself, but I got myself here, and it's like, how can I get there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's- yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because I was thinking too that they kind of get tied together. Because I was like, I don't know. I think I like get frustrated about the past because it affects or delays my future,
Yeah.
and then I'm in the present. Similarly, like what can I control now to like close the gap on the years I might have lost right there or something. But it's funny how it all intertwines.
Yeah, because I really don't think about, I mean, I think about the past, but not like in a sense where I get stuck there. I don't really regret anything because I wouldn't have learned everything that I've learned at this point without the mistakes that I've made. So, yeah, it's definitely more or less just blurry vision of
Yeah.
where I got myself to see, like, getting myself out of that and into the vision that I've always had. I've always been a dreamer and had big dreams, but it's kind of getting caught up in what I can control right now and getting back to dreaming and having that joy of tomorrow, today, you know.
Yeah, I'm curious your answer on that, but I guess like a lot of patterns from the past though we see in the present that like sometimes we don't even know are coming from our past. So that's another layer, I guess. But
My honestly answer would be the exact same thing as you, because that's what I was like, present. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, and then to hear you explain it was, I mean, whatever he said, just say that for me. But in everybody talking, I jotted down that, you know, something that I think is we should talk about, but the championship, it's based on the commitment. You know what I'm saying? And like I just said that to say because like we're talking about gratitude, you know, and how just important that really is, because what that does is that, you know, that makes you, you know, focus on the positive in your life. And obviously the more positive, you know, you focus on, it's all spiritual. You know, you're going to attract more positivity. And the thing I also said in that is like, it's super cool because and the reason I said the championship based on the commitment, because like everybody wants to go for that championship, right? Championship, I don't want to say, but it's essentially man-made. You know, it's not, I mean, it might always be there, but you're going to hit that peak and then have to hit again, you know what I'm saying? And like, it never stops. It's almost a constant rat race, you know? And that's why it's so important to be, you know, just, I don't want to say happy, but just, I guess, appreciative. That's what I'm saying. Appreciative of everything that you're going through, because that's the journey. And that's really that's the rat race ourselves, you know, and building ourselves. But the one little quote I want to say in the Kobe book I had, but Kobe literally said, he said, the high of a win to him is the same as a low of a loss. So that's why no matter if he wins or if he loses, the next championship, whatever it is, he's going to show up and work the same. You know what I'm saying? Because the true journey, or the true, you know, excitement comes from what are you doing in your journey. You know what I'm saying? I just thought that was so cool. You know, and I think that's why, you know, just being grateful is so important. You know, because they always say if you're grateful for some things, God's going to give you more things to be grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a really important thing there, because just in terms of that rat race, I mean, there's nothing wrong, obviously, with being that ambitious and wanting that championship, but it can't make or break you. You know what I mean? You have to know you're a champion because you're alive and breathe it, and then aspire for that. But yeah, if those wins and losses make or break you, I mean, yeah, that's the goal, is you can't let a win or a loss make or break you. You know what I mean? Your losses can't break you and your wins can't make you. This is all it comes down to. You have to have that same mentality and structure no matter what the totals are there, and go about that. But yeah, I think that was
And yeah, the question is, can you perform your highest when you're feeling your worst? Should be an easy question. No. You know what I'm saying? You cannot perform your highest when you're not feeling your worst. So if you're letting these battles break you, mic drop. I don't think I need to clarify. You know what I'm saying? But that was great, Jake.
Yeah, there was something I wanted to touch on with something you said, Sam, but it slipped my mind there.
was it about the patterns?
Oh yeah, it was actually. I'm glad I brought that up. But yeah, that's like part of so I was doing my steps. That's what the fourth step is basically. It was hard for me because I don't, like I said, I don't look at the past in terms of like, oh, where would I be today if I would have did this then, you know, I tried not to ever do that. But it was interesting to look at it and you look back in terms of not that way, but what were just like, what are my conditioned responses to things that I never realized that I still react to things now based on things that were ingrained in me, you know. I mean, for me, it was obviously like before drinking and that, but just realizing like, oh yeah, those patterns, like that didn't cause that issue in me. That was always there. That was always a character defect of mine. It just got worse and worse and worse because it was never, I forget how they said it in one of the videos we watched, but it was just never identified properly. You know what I mean? It was just, that's just part of who I am. Can't change it. When it's like, that's so bogus. You know what I mean? We can change anything we want to change.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of being willing to go through the discomfort of actually changing it.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of, you know, the change comes when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of discomfort. But yeah, just made me think of that when looking back in that way. It was still tough, but it was just, it does a lot when you realize like, okay, that's how I'm wired, you know what I mean? So I have to understand how I'm wired to rewire myself, otherwise I'm just crossing wires everywhere.
Yeah, I read something that was talking about like, in terms of that we either protect or we deflect, where like we're either like completely like hiding away or shielding ourselves from something bad that happened to us, or we're just like denying that it's a problem and exposing ourselves completely to whatever it is. And like that's funny because you can see that in a lot of patterns where if you're hurt, you just suppress and avoid a lot of things, or you know, if you have a pattern of something that's like damaging you, it's all you know, so you just constantly continue to re-expose yourself to that behavior. And it's funny to think about because all of us have patterns like that in one way or another. But I think it does affect, going back to the main point we're talking about, like our perspectives though, because we don't even see something that's been ingrained in us over so many years. But yeah, I don't know, that's an important piece.
Yeah, I guess we'll roll into solution searching there, but just how, my question there would be just how can we better identify those hidden character defects like on the fly in real time, IRL.
Well, something I wanted to say, honestly, I don't know if this answers it, but it's more or less, I guess, encouragement. Lean into the hard. You know, when it's hard, lean into it. John Bevere, guy we watch, he always says, you know, gold, you heat up gold, and right before it's gold happens, all the impurities come out. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's all that's happening. You're gold, and it's just at the forefront. You're really realizing, like, okay, I've got some things I need to just rewire. But that's the biggest thing I'd say is lean into it, and then I'd say get a support system. Definitely.
Yeah, I think like a cool person to have in your like circle, you know how they say like someone that's like a good friend or a lifelong friend, you can like grow apart, but when you come back together it's like there was no time in between. Like I think those are really good perspectives to bring into like your patterns and things like that nature, because they don't see you and talk to you every single day, so they're gonna notice, you know, any changes or lack thereof, because you know when they come back and you talk to them maybe once a month, they're gonna be like, whoa, like you're taking a different view on this, or like, oh well, you keep saying you want this for your life but you haven't done anything about it, and like they kind of call you out, and like you almost take it better too from somebody that's a little bit more outside versus someone you're like with every single day, day in, day out, because you can respect it almost. You're like, dang, I don't even talk to this person every single day, but they see this about me, and people that I see every day have been saying this, so it almost like validates it more. But I think having someone like that in your community can kind of break some of the patterns or help solve those solutions.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. for me, because what I was gonna say is to just what you've been saying is staying open-minded, so that when you hear those things, you know, you're not just, well, no, you don't understand, and like you said, get protective or deflective, one of those two options. But yeah, I think the other part of it for me is just more or less like watching the game film each night. Like I have to go home, I have to reflect each day, like, and not be in defense of, well, no, this reaction from me was right because I was treated this way, but just, okay, what happened today? How could I have handled it better? How could, if I did handle everything, you know, okay, how could I maybe explain myself better so that, you know, the message is received better? But just replay every single day at the end of the night so that I can look at how can I be better tomorrow. Because I feel too, the more that I don't do that and you let those days stack up, then it just gets overwhelming on where was the place that I could get better, what day was it, and it just becomes this merry-go-round of chaos, more or less. But yeah, when I do it nightly and I break it down and just take from today, what was today's issue, you know, get peace with it in my brain, and then I wake up refreshed because I don't have to wake up worrying about yesterday's problems. I wake up, okay, now I already figured out yesterday how I can attack today better. Let's go do it. And then other things will happen that day that I didn't plan for the night before, and then same thing, review it and just keep going. But
I think, self-reflection is so important, and I'm kind of curious, like, how do you guys get yourself, because it's like a good discipline to try to like self-reflect daily, but realistically, and myself included, if I'm being honest, it's not something I do every day because I just don't think about it. Like, what puts you in the place or position to self-reflect typically?
I mean, for me, it was alcoholism. I had, like, now I have no choice, you know what I mean? I can't say before getting clean that I ever did it, because again, I would say before getting clean, I would look at the end of the night, you know, and probably go home and drink and then just convince myself of why everything I did was right because everyone did things wrong to me throughout the day, you know what I mean? Rather than just, now I have to so that I stay sober and on the straight and narrow. But yeah, for me so I guess it was that pain of staying the same was the big thing for me, was more than the pain of changing. But yeah, it is too, just now I see those character defects in me and want to continue to grow, so it's just become a habit for me now, even instantly when something happens and I'm like, okay, that didn't go great, what did I do, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's a good habit to form.
I agree with you. I don't do it as often as I would like to, but yeah, that's the only time I would, is just to continue growing myself, because it just makes too much sense to me. Like, you know, essentially, like, you can't tell a movie how to get better if you've never seen the movie. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, why our life's not the same way? Why we just day after day, hopefully something goes right, hopefully something goes, well, you know, you can do something about it because you're the one that can change it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm similar to what you were saying. Like, just, you said it, the weight of staying the same overloads the weight of changing. I had to think about how it actually would.
Yeah, to that point too, like, I probably am similar. Like, I feel like it takes me kind of like, I don't want to say like messing up or screwing something up to like then self-reflect, but I guess, I don't know, forming the habit is probably the best. But I'm like, what solutions are there if you only naturally self-reflect when you have to because you don't like the way something looks or the pain of staying the same is there? I mean, I guess sometimes it gets sparked if you are learning and exploring. I'm sure you guys have all like watched like a TikTok or podcast clip or something and you're like, whoa, that really resonated, and then start searching more about the person that was saying it or the topic they're on and watching more, and that can make you like internalize and be like, oh, or like in conversation. But I don't know, just like healthy ways to get to a space to self-reflect other than like, oh crap, I need to look at my life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, were you sorry?
Yeah.
I was just gonna quickly say, I mean, I think one of you guys already said the snowball effect. It's so true. Just like how you said the TikTok, you find something you like, you go on the whole thing, yada yada. just start, with finding, time, put aside any type of time you want. It's not going to be very consistent at first, you know what I'm saying? But just start, with self-reflection, because the more you see it, you're going to see it work and actually affect, the next couple days. You're like, oh no, I wanted it, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it all snowballs. Go ahead.
All I was gonna say was, because you sparked in my mind actually, there was, yeah, I guess the big thing that does trigger it though is just like confrontation or friction.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
good.
When there's any kind of friction, then I'm immediately gonna be like, okay, well, someone did something wrong there.
Yeah.
Was it me? Was it them? And was it both of us? And so that like immediately triggers it. But what I was thinking was, again, in terms of Billie Eilish thing, was just, it is harder to see. So when things are going good, am I still doing it on why things are going good? And you know what I mean? And
like
I
the
think,
other side of it.
yeah, so it just made me kind of think, because I feel like I am, but you can get in those bad habits of just getting lazy, but you can just have to be more intentional on how I spend my time, and am I looking in what is what I can't talk right now. Is what I am doing with my time, is it just a waste of my time, or am I actually looking to like expand again my thinking, my understanding, or am I just watching TV or shorts on YouTube that, are just funny shorts, whatever, things that are actually gonna challenge like what I believe and make me really understand why I believe what I believe and things like that. So yeah, I think just being intentional, asking the question, just asking myself questions in terms of why are things going good? When was the last time I reflected?
I think like another good habit, which I've never done, I'm curious if you guys have, because I kind of want to try it after this conversation, is journaling. Because whether you're in a good state or a bad state, if you form a habit of daily journaling, you're kind of gonna get to self-reflect on the other side when things are good, and like when there is a confrontational day, like, because it's just there every day, like that habit you form. Have you guys journaled?
I have a little bit. It's a huge tool in the recovery community, but I wouldn't say I've really journaled. Like how most people journal in terms of just starting to write. I more or less read, and my form of journaling is taking certain pieces of what I read and rewriting them, like in my book here. But I do that because in the New Eyes book that I was reading, it's science, but it's neurons that fire together, wire together. So it's the more that you create that bridge, the more you go to it. So I really wanted things that stuck out to me, that resonated with me. I wanted that to be a go-to, like whenever I was feeling challenged. So when something was like, man, I like that, I wanted it in a place where I just had a book full of things that resonated with me. So I would only not read it, but then I would read it while I was writing it, and then I would read it again. So that's like 4 times that I read something that resonated. And then I had it in a book where I could just read through all these passages that meant something to me at some point. And it just gave me the idea to do that, because like now I have at least one full book filled out that I started from when I started to get clean. So I can go back now that I'm gonna have a year next week and look at it and be like, wow, what was I, what was sticking out to me then? Why was it sticking out? How does it resonate today? So it's similar, but for me, my form of like journaling, I try to put into songs. So I do, but I try not to waste it like on paper. More or less the thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah. I used to journal a lot. Don't journal as much as I used to. I recommend it. I would love to get back into it, because when I started journaling, it was really just because I needed to get all of my negative thoughts out. But that's why I'm like, it's hard for me to do it, because then I must associate journaling with like, okay, what's wrong with me? Why am I going through this? Spread it all down, because that was the season I was in. And it helped me, help me get, day, because that's the seasons you just got to get to the next day. And it would literally get me to the next day, because I would see it and be like, I'm worth more than this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this doesn't feel right. But because that's how I started journaling. That's why it's a little challenging now for me to get into journaling, because it's like, just like I said, that's just like we talked about earlier, our past, but yeah. I want to get back into it. They on your Apple iPhones, they have a journal app where you can just do little random ones, and I've actually started that as well. I've done like 3 inputs, which I don't want to look back at yet because it's all within the last like 2 months, and it is one of those things where I want to go back and see what we're going to do. But fun fact, you both have made the journal already. But no, I want to journal a little bit more, and I want to do it more intentional. And that's something I wanted to say about you, and I love how you do that because repetition is the mother of all skill. And I was thinking of some cool thing to say, but I couldn't right now. But what I'll say is, I'd much rather wisdom than knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Because what's wisdom? Knowledge is mileage. And you'll get the knowledge if you read it once. How you gonna get the mileage? Read it again, write it down, read it again. You know what I'm saying? Not many people do that. I love that. But yeah, that was my journal ramble.
Yeah, I mean, it helped me a lot. I mean, I would suggest if you don't feel comfortable, just like writing down random stuff, this helped me a lot. And you can do it with anything, you know what I mean? But it also forced me to read something that I didn't have, so I had to seek other knowledge that wasn't already in my brain, which is why I like to do that too.
Amen.
And then I just looked at it as like arming myself with, it says that we are to arm ourselves with the Word of God, so I looked at it that way in terms of, okay, I'm resetting my life. I have no clue how to lead a sober life, so I need tools that when I'm challenged, that's my reaction. That's the thought, that's the quote that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
But it did a lot. I mean, like in terms of in outpatient, just things I was writing down, I was able to share them with the group, and I mean, it just helps everybody. So I think that goes back into, like in Batu, everyone has to be their best for everyone to be their best.
Amen.
And it's a team thing. That's why I like to share and talk so much too. It's just because we can disagree, but if I don't share it, keep it in here, no one ever, no one can do anything with it. I don't get told if I'm wrong or how off base I am, you know what I mean? And so that's why I think the open-mindedness is huge, because I can't share with a closed mind and want people. I can just share and say, hey, here's something that's in my brain,
What do you
What
think
does that
of
make
it?
you
Yeah.
guys think? Yeah. But yeah, and on a positive note, any specific positive notes jumping out?
For me, it's Juneteenth. Like, this is a huge day. Love
That's what I was
Juneteenth.
thinking.
Let freedom reign. Like, I was like, amen. Like, God bless. If you don't know what Juneteenth is, look it up. Or we
Yeah, you should by now. But
Honestly.
I guess honestly, only 2021. I mean, that's crazy to think about
Yeah,
it being
it's
a
pretty
national
fresh.
holiday in 2021.
Yeah.
But honestly, it should. Let's get that Juneteenth hype up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a big one. It should be one of our most important holidays in America, and it's still trying to get some legs. So let's help it out.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate that.
I like it.
But yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us again. Like, comment, subscribe, please. Help us get up to 50 subscribers so we can start doing these live.
The route to 50.
Bring them right to you.
Be a part of it.
And leave us a comment to welcome Samantha to the show for us.
Thank you.